disrupted
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Been a fantastic day so far. So Tucker Carlson is here in Canada, and we know about his phone call. We know that he was coming, and now he's officially arrived for his kind of revolutionary take of Canada, and it's actually kind of extraordinary. It's kind of extraordinary on what Tucker Carlson's bringing to the table and how he's bringing so many Canadians together to listen to him address the systematic problems that we already know is taking part of our country, but the fact that it's uniting people, it's one person trying to unite people into this arenas in across Alberta and other places, it's just mesmerizing. It really is. And Tucker Carlson mentions a few key points of what the biggest concerns here in Canada. And again, we know a lot about this. I feel like a lot of the times we're afraid to mention this because of the fact that there is a lot of people that are diluted propagandization of the state media running. There's people that just don't want to bring this up and they feel uncomfortable or discouraged because of freedom of speech. Whatever the case may be, here's just a little take of a recent speech that Tucker Carlson gave at a stadium in Edmonton, at a hockey arena in Edmonton, and he's addressing a lot of key critical issues that you will never hear anywhere in the talking heads of Canadian media, and not even a lot of American media. Maybe some cases on Rebel News, but not really to the same degree. And this is pretty interesting.
If you're killing 50,000 of your citizens, if the government is doing that through the MAID program, and a lot of them are not actually terminally ill, they're just sad, and the government is encouraging them to submit to being killed by the government, and then we'll release the recent statistics. Like, what is that?
So, what he's bringing up there at first is the MAIDs program. That is the medically assisted indoctrination dying by the government. That if you sign up, they will medically assist you in suicide. And we've covered this on the channel. We mentioned a few videos. We saw, shocking, heartbreaking videos of how MAIDs has, gone from, people that were on life support and they want an option out to expanding to the point that now they're just taking in like randos off the street and, that feels sad, and it's just gone to extreme levels, and even trying to promote it as some sort of like initiative of being cool and hip. Oh, it's okay to die. It's the new trendy thing. It's just outrageous. It's so outrageous. And the fact that also too, we showcased how, veterans that have made the ultimate sacrifice here in Canada, when they went shipped off to war and they come back home, and they get so much of the burden, they get so much oppressed to them that they're at the point of committing suicide, that they have to sign up for government-assisted suicide, when all we could be doing right now is investing a portion of our budget, instead of sending it off to Ukraine or Israel or Haiti or any other nation to create wars. We can be investing in helping veterans survive. We showed the one lady, she was a corporal or a captain, I do believe, of the Army. And all she asked for from the Veterans Assistance, the hospital, was a stair lift, which was about, $100, $200 that they could have easily helped out or try to find a way to help her out. But instead they said, hey, you're pretty much useless at this point, so we're just going to sign you up for suicide. Like, that's the devastating part of Canada. That's the devastating darkness of this country. The true patriot love is basically dead now in Canada. The minute we had the MAIDs program expanding to the point of, well, if you're useless to this country, we might as well just kill you. And Tucker Carlson seems to be the only person to point this out. Other than, like, say, Rebel News or myself. The only persona big enough to bring a crowd like this is Tucker Carlson. So it's amazing.
What is that? Yeah, it's genocide. That's exactly what it is. It's killing large groups of people. And who are those people, by the way? We don't know, because your government hasn't released the stats. What percentage of those are born in Canada? I bet right around 100%. So if you're a government, you have the duty to your citizens, people who are from here, people whose ancestors built the place, not exclusively to them, but primarily to them, to your citizens. Like, why else do you exist except to serve your citizens? And if you're targeting your citizens, how many people who arrived in Canada in the last 10 years have opted into the MAID program? I don't know the answer. I bet around zero. It's all people who are from here. Another government brags, oh, we're saving money because they died. That's the darkest thing I can imagine. I bet there's zero conversation about that in this country, because I know this.
Yeah, that was the other heartbreaking thing that we showed on the channel here. They were bragging because of how our healthcare system is deteriorating, because, again, we're sending all of our money off to Ukraine, Israel, Haiti, all these different nations to destroy them, and basically building this military alliance, this ultra-fascist global dictatorship with NATO and other military factions of the globalist empire. Instead of investing here in Canada and helping our healthcare, they said we're saving healthcare. We're saving money by not providing people healthcare from their taxes, and instead using their taxes to kill them. Like that was some sort of benefit for Canada. Yay us! Wow. I remember how devastating, how gruesome that was. Like, it's literally a stab right in the heart of a Canadian. That's the most deepening, darkening thing you could say about Canada, is that it's a good thing we're killing our own citizens, because it's, in the end, it's going to save us money. That's like saying, hey, why don't we just put a nuclear bomb and blow up the entire planet, and then that way all the problems are resolved, because no one will exist.
I know what it's like. It's too horrible. No one wants to talk about it. You should talk about it. But more than anything, you should internalize the message of that, which is they hate me. They hate me to the point they're willing to kill me, which they are. And the third thing is, notice the erosion of your most basic civil liberties, not the ones granted to you by the crown, but the ones granted to you by God. And those would include the freedom of speech, which is inalienable. It cannot be taken from you no matter who is in Ottawa. Your rights remain the same because you were born with them, because you are not a slave, you're a human being. And you have inherent dignity because God made you. That's just a fact. And if they're taking those rights away piecemeal and doing so in the name of public safety, even as they make the public sphere much more dangerous, which they have, in case you haven't noticed, Canada has a lot more violent crime now than it did 20 years ago. Have you noticed? Of course you have. You live here. And they're telling you can't defend yourself against that crime. We're going to disarm you. You can't protect your life or your family. And you're like, oh yeah, it's for the public safety. It's just not a big deal. These are weapons of war. No, they're weapons of self-defense, which you need and deserve as a free person, not a slave. And then they're telling you can't complain about it. And then they're subsidizing the media to the point where all of your big media outlets, which are disgusting, are state media, because they're taking the state cash. Do you watch CBC? I do, occasionally. I can turn in any hour of the day and I will learn that I'm racist for driving an SUV and not being trans. That's the whole schedule of CBC programming.
Yeah.
So if they're limiting your freedom to say what you think, which is freedom of conscience, the most basic of all freedom, your freedom to defend yourself and your family against bodily harm, which has got to be a twin to the first one. If they're taking away your voting power by changing the population of your country, which they are doing, and no one wants to talk about that, Canada has the highest immigration rate in the world per capita. And shut up, racist! That's not racist. I don't care if you're coming from New Zealand. I don't care if you're taking the population of Stockholm and moving them to Canada. If you change the population of the country, you change the country. And you dilute the voting power of the people who are vested in that country, the people who are born there, who have lived there long term, who understand the history and the culture of the country, who are bought in. And all of a sudden, their vote means much less. It's math.
That's some powerful words, ladies and gentlemen, and that is why Tucker Carlson, even off any major broadcaster, even with this show on X or Now he has Tucker Carlson Network and it booming successfully because he is that voice. He is that lonesome voice that people need to hear. People need to have an option to get away from the corporate media sphere, the corporate fascist aligned government controlled globalist uh just the oligarchy. They need something outside of it and they look towards someone like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, because he got fired from Fox News because he told you the truth about Syria, he told you the truth about Ukraine, he told you the truth about vaccines, he told you the truth about the mandates. He was one of the only people to bring on people like Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald and Max Blumenthal in the gray zone and actually told you the real perspective of what's going on in the world. That is why he was an outcast. That is why he got thrown out of the bus. He had to establish his own network, and he's able to go to Canada in Edmonton and fill an entire hockey arena for this event. Like people that go to see hockey games can't even fill an arena anymore. But Tucker Carlson was able to do so because he brings on that message. He brings on the message of bringing people together and saying, you have some dignity. You have self-love and self-respect. You have the ability to unite together. You are people. You are human beings. You're not trash. You are not pawns. You are not, lab rats and part of this social experiment done by government oligarchs. You are a person. And I want to bring up, because he mentioned about maids, and this is like, I bring this to attention because this never gets addressed higher enough, and it was the most talked about in his speech there. I just want to point this out, and yes, it is from the CBC, and I know he just trashed the CBC, and I laughed at it, but even the state broadcasters themselves can't hide away from this statistic. It's just so alarming. Number of assisted deaths jumped more than 30% in 2022, report says. Experts and advocates dispute whether the increase is cause for concern. And what's so important about that is they have the exact same program in Switzerland. The exact same medically assisted suicide or medically assisted in death program in Switzerland. The same we do here in Canada, they have in Switzerland. The only difference between here and Switzerland is that Switzerland, first of all, they didn't expand it to include mental health issues. They didn't expand it for homeless people. They didn't expand it to the same degree we did. And also in Switzerland, if they realize that their numbers are high because they look at the statistics, they reanalyze their policies in the nation and realize, hey, maybe why are our own citizens committing so much suicide? Maybe there's an issue to look at within our country, within our policies, and look into it and actually apply that to make changes better for the population. We don't do that here in Canada. We don't even bother to look at the statistics of number of assisted deaths. But it's more than 30% in 2022. And that number just keeps increasing. So they're not even gonna acknowledge that, hey, more and more Canadians would rather die than survive another year here in Canada. Should that not be problematic? Should that not be problematic? You're not concerned that your own citizens would rather die than live in Canada? Is that kind of like ruining the Canadian dream? Is that kind of ruining the prosperous, nation of true patriot love and all of us command? Is that not ruining the reputation of Canada, that people would rather die, take the option of death, than actually acknowledging the problems that would make Canada a great country to live in? Well, I do have some hope, because there are some individuals, and I do say some because there's not many, sadly, and it's devastating because they're not being told these stories. They're not being told the the turnaround that could happen to them, the appreciation, the hope. And that's something that Tucker Carlson even brought to attention, that, you know, you are recognized, you are a person, you are a human being. You're not a slave to an oligarch, you're not a slave to a corporation, you're not a slave to a political party. You're a regular human being. You have a brain, you have a mind, you have, you know, guts and attention and desire and hope and love and support. You have ideas and opinions, and you should be okay with that. You're allowed to express yourself. You're allowed to have freedom of speech. That's one of the greatest things about being a human person. That's the greatest thing about being an individual. And we see oligarch governments like here in Canada and the United States and all around the world trying to strip that away from you. But here's what gives you some hope to this, is this story. This came out of the National Post, and it says a homeless Ontario man applied for assisted suicide. Now he's sober and the author of a book. Tyler Dunlop went from being homeless and seeking death to getting sober, building a community, and writing a book about homelessness. Now, I'm going to bet you that no one from any government office told him this. I bet you it was somebody else who knew the sympathy, who knew the hardship, and actually gave him a bit of direction, gave him some sort of hope. I bet it was someone outside of the means of, you know, the government and the oligarchy, someone just a random stranger that actually gave this person advice. Not anyone, no doctors, no nurses or any practitioner, none of those people. Because I'm sure they want to go through with this. They wanted to go through with the assisted suicide and rack up some sort of incentive to this. But no, someone actually reached out to this homeless man and told him, you have purpose. You have identity. People actually care about you. It doesn't seem like that, but people actually do care about you. And he was able to change his life around. He was able to change himself for the better. And I just wish we had more of these hope stories. I wish more people saw this perspective. Instead of just saying that, hey, we should just kill them. You know, just send them off to the maids program or lock them in prison or, you know, destroy their encampments. Maybe actually look at homeless people as a person and not just a wild animal. Just a change of perspective. And right now, the perspective in Canada from the government is that we're all vicious animals and we need to be controlled. But us Canadians know from the trucker convoy, from the Freedom Convoy, and just talking to one another, is that we are human beings. We are like one big, you know, we're basically like a big dysfunctional family. But even with our dysfunctions, even with our flaws, we're able to get along. We're able to find some sort of common ground, and we're able to build upon that common ground. And that was one of the things that the Freedom Convoy really showed us, is that people of all walks of life can able to gather together and realize that we're all human beings. We all value, you know, basic principles, and we don't want that taken away from anybody. We all want to support one each other, and we want to, you know, help and thrive as a community. So that's the big perspective there, and that was what Tucker Carlson was bringing to here in Canada and in his tour here, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing, and also the fact that he brings up very specific points that you don't hear anybody really mention it, not in mainstream media. And not in a good way. Not in a good way. Because, you know, when they bring up maids, they're just, you know, they're congratulatory on the fact of how much money they're saving, not spending on healthcare. They're congratulatory on the fact that, hey, well, those people are probably useless anyway. As if some sort of victory to kill more people. Just how sinister that sounds.